So fast forward, I don't know what, 6 months, a year ago, something like that. Me and Jason were in Sunday school class, just talking before church got started, and we said, church, it's growing, things are going good. Like, I think we need to put a mission trip together. And well, okay, that'd be great. Where do you think we should go? And uh, I said, well, I sort of done some research into Belize a few years ago, and he had been there on a cruise stop at one point. So he said, yeah, it sounds like a pretty good place to start looking. Well, about that time, Marcia walks in, and she had actually got an email from Belize, from, I believe, the high school, the Nazarene High School, asking about doing some work. So we were talking about Belize. She walks in, and we had this kind of aha moment where she looked at both of us and said, okay, that's it. We're going to Belize. I don't know why, but we're going to Belize. Um, so we started, reaching out. They went there back in the spring. Done a little groundwork, sort of working vacation while they were down there. And we sort of decided that, kind of got a feel for the place. Then me and Becky, it was really kind of put up on us, I guess you would say, that we kind of go down there and try to lay out some groundwork, see what it's about, see what the needs are, see hotels, food arrangements, transportation, all those things. After we, officially said, yes, this has happened, after, the board gave us the thumbs up. Thanks, Walter. Um, so we went down, what month was that? October. Yeah, October 10th through the 15th. It's middle of the semester. I don't keep up with days anymore. And we learned a lot. So I guess tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, our experiences, some of the things we did, some of the people we met. We'll talk about some of the needs that are, what they need down there. Kind of some ideas. I know there's a couple people here that are wanting to go on this trip in 2025. So kind of, sort of, what am I trying to say here?
We're here to educate everybody about what it's like. So I had never been out of the States up until this trip. I got my passport back in August. It was a very easy experience through the Cheatham County office. I expedited my passport just because I was anxious to get it in on time. But traveling out of the United States was very intimidating for me because I had never done that before. Where he did a mission trip to the Philippines with this church when he was in high school. And I was very intimidated at first. I didn't really know what to expect. But the flight from Nashville to Dallas was an hour and a half, and then from Dallas to Belize was an hour and a half. That was it. And then it was an hour and a half to Miami, and then back home. And it was not a very long flight like I thought it would. If you don't know where Belize is located, it's in Central America, below Mexico, beside Guatemala. It's not often that we look at a world map anymore, and so I thought we were headed to South America. I didn't know where we were going.
Yeah, there's a picture.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. But I have a different level of respect for people outside of the United States that live somewhere like Belize. I didn't really know what to expect other than I found myself in a hole when I was Googling what to expect traveling internationally, and I scared myself more than I helped myself.
This was what, about a week before we left?
It was a week before we left, and I was on the state gov website, and the first thing that popped up is what to do if you're forced into an arranged marriage.
It's like
internationally.
It's like going on WebMD for, a headache, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I've got 24 hours to live. So stay off those websites. It'll scare you.
Yes, please don't do that. But I've never felt more safe somewhere after I got through the first night. When we landed in Belize, not only was I tired, but I was scared. We had Zoomed the week before with Teresita, who is one of the people that Pastor Sean and Marcia had met while they were down in Belize. She's affiliated with the church and knew about the schools. And then there was Pastor Jermaine, who is the associate pastor of the Nazarene church down there. So those two picked us up from the airport. And even though we had Zoomed with Teresita, we had never met Pastor Jermaine on Zoom. I was getting in a car in a foreign vehicle with people I didn't know. And that was really scary for me personally, not because they seemed unsafe, but just there was just a lot of new territory for me. And he was like, "Let's go," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no."
Let's get back on the
what's
plane.
going on.
So when you land in the airport, it's I guess most everybody here has probably been to Nashville International or an airport, and you heading? Oh, you're missing out. It's going to be great. It's a lot. They got restaurants and shopping and all that stuff. The airport in Belize City, which is the big main airport. I think how to describe this. It's kind of like Governor Square Mall, like 2002. It reminds me of I get those vibes, like it's different than our airports. When you land, you don't come through a terminal. You go down the stairs and you're on the tarmac, and you come in and go through customs. Customs, if you haven't ever been through customs, it can be sort of nerve-wracking, especially somewhere that much different than our culture. I've been through customs in Canada, and it's, how you doing, eh? And it's okay. But I've been through the Philippines. I've been to Belize now, and it's very intimidating. Like, they're never happy for some reason, but it's always, do you have anything you're not supposed to? You go to jail if you do. It's kind of, that's at least how I took it.
But Belize is an English-speaking country.
Yes.
And so that was very helpful to me as far as my nerves, because that's the language that we speak. And so that made me feel a lot better. But once we got through customs and we were picked up from the airport, we left with Pastor Jermaine and Teresita, who were very kind from the moment we met them. And driving through Belize, once you leave the airport, there's no speed limit anywhere you go. So people are just like going this way and going that way, and
if
you don't stop.
2-lane road be like driving on Main Street in Ashland City. If somebody's going too slow, you just go around them. And if a car's coming, you just kind of squeeze in between them.
It was wild.
It's different, right? It's like a go-kart track in Gatlinburg with a bunch of 7-year-olds.
Yes.
It keeps you on your toes, like the handle. I'm not gonna say what handle it is. You know what it is. Sorry, they know what I'm talking about. It's got a name for a reason. Yeah, it's it's intense. You do get used to it though.
Yeah. So as we're driving through the city, though, you start to see what Belize looks like. And if you've ever been to New Orleans, New Orleans is a very dirty city. Belize is a lot like that, but worse. There's no hills. Belize is all flat. So when it rains and it floods hard.
Mm-hmm.
There's trash on the streets, dogs running loose, people walking from one destination to another or riding a bicycle. Here in the States, when you're hungry or you're needing groceries, you drive to the grocery store or you go through a drive-through if you're hungry. That doesn't exist in Belize. There's a lot of rundown warehouses that are actually places for you to shop for clothing or to get food, but you have to know that that's what that is, because it's not going to look anything like that's where you need to be. There are a couple of nice hardware stores that I'll let him talk about here in just a few minutes that you can get supplies for what we'll do down there. But there are not fast food restaurants. You just happen to know your local friends or family members down there who own a place for you to find a meal. And the meals down there, and there's some pictures I'll tell you what, I'll talk through each picture as they go through. That would be helpful, just so we stay on track. But
okay.
The picture right here, the Belize sign, that's one of the touristy signs that you see when you get to Belize. They're all over the city and the islands, but those are hand painted. And on the front slide, there was a picture of a toucan, and that's their national bird. And I thought that was really neat, the Fruit Loop bird. Yeah. the Belize signs are beautiful. They're all hand painted, and so it's a great spot to take pictures by the water.
There's a lot of murals and stuff. It's a very, talking to Pastor Jermaine, he really gave us the real tour of Belize. We didn't go to the, the all-inclusive hotels or the cruise ship stops. He took us on some back streets and back roads and got to see how the people really are. But he kind of pointed out, and it makes a lot of sense, looking back, that, Belizean people, in their culture, art is very important. So everywhere you go, there's these just beautiful murals everywhere. Every street corner.
The picture on the screen, when you Google Belize, the blue hole is what pops up, and that's a national monument in the ocean that a lot of your divers and fishermen and snorkelers who are professionals, that's where they go to dive and do different things. That is actually located 40 miles off the coast of Belize. So we didn't go out there. You'd have to take a charter, and it would take a long time to get out there. But that was at a Lebanese restaurant that we ate at as soon as we got settled to where we could find some food, and it was delicious. And it was actually at someone's house on their back porch. Their meals
a lot
were
of
cooked.
restaurants like that.
Yeah, the meal was cooked on their grill. The food came from their house, and we just sat on their back porch and ate. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's in Belize. They have several call centers, for Central America. So there's a few, big buildings. There's some IT work that goes on there. What else? As far as big industry, there's not a lot of, big industry. So a lot of the people, they kind of have their own business. So Pastor Jermaine, his business, he does, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, stuff like that. So he does remodels and things like that. One of the guys that goes to church there, Jomo, he is a chef. He has his own restaurant. But even when you're driving down the street, there's a lot of these, like, on the side of the road, the main drags, little, like, lawnmower sheds almost, but not really lawnmower shed, but probably a 8 by 10, 12 by 16 kind of building, and it'll have a window, and they'll make, this one makes tacos, and this one, sells clothes, and this one does motorcycle repair, and that's kind of how the culture is. Everybody sort of has their own little business, and that's, how they make their living.
So the next picture, when you leave the airport, you'll see their flag, their national flag, so that's pretty neat. Let's go to the next slide. That was just an ocean airplane view of Belize. So the water is absolutely gorgeous. It's very clear, but that's off the ocean. On the coast, unless you're on a nicer island, the water is dark and dirty and stinky, and it's not something that maybe you would want to swim in per se. Next up, I've put some pictures together.
Cab lights or headlights? Turn the knob just to the left of the steering wheel. Thank you.
Next up are some pictures of Belize. And so this was a young boy just riding a horse that probably needed a little bit more nutrition as he was riding down the road. So that was through a neighborhood. In the next picture, this is what a lot of the houses look like. Unfortunately, the houses are run down. They need repair. Something that was very new to me that I was not used to, air conditioning is non-existent in Belize. And so as we were driving down the road in the car or inside of a restaurant, there's no air conditioning. And I don't like to be hot, but at the same time, that is how they live. That's part of their culture. And it's not because maybe they don't have access always to air conditioning, but I did learn that when cold air, because they're so used to the heat down there, it dries out their skin and it's super uncomfortable. So they like sweating.
The hotel room had air conditioner for those of you going.
Yeah,
just
our hotel
putting that out
did.
there.
In the next slide, that's just a picture around town as we were driving. Go ahead. This is what the sidewalks look like in Belize. And as you can see, there's the garage door. That one was closed. But that's an example of what a restaurant or a grocery store could look like. So if the door's rolled up and they have a sign out, that could be a place where you could eat and shop, whatever. So this is someone's house. A lot of the houses down there need repair. There's usually, go ahead.
So this is probably a little on the nicer side of a lot of the houses. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people have cars. Some people do not. It really just depends on, their level of comfortability financially in Belize. There was a lot of people that did have cars, but what was really neat to me, and I wish I had a picture, a lot of your landscapers who were going to work were on a bicycle, and they had a special way of hauling their weed eater or landscaping tool on their bicycle, and they made it look so easy. And here we're just so used to hopping in our car, cutting on a radio and going.
And air conditioner.
And an air conditioner. And a lot of these Belizean people were on bicycles or walking on foot, carrying their child. And, there was a lot of little babies that were sitting on the front of a bicycle as their guardian went from one place to another. But that's normal for them. Okay. That was a cute little peach-colored house that I found. That's probably, like, if you have a very nice house in Belize.
Yeah.
That's what your house is going to look like.
And the colors there, just the architecture. Sorry. They paint their buildings awesome colors. So this orange, click to the next one I just seen, turquoise, yellows, purples. We don't have that here, and it just makes me happy just seeing it.
So in this picture, this was actually in front of our hotel. Aside from restaurants, a lot of people are self-employed somehow, some way in Belize. And so this gentleman and his young child were on a bicycle with a cooler selling fresh tamales and corn lop, which is hot cream corn from the Mexican culture. So even though English is the national language in Belize, the culture consists of a lot of island people, a lot of Hispanic people. There's actually, was it Mennonite or Amish?
Amish.
There's
a lot of Amish outside of town, which kind of surprised me.
But Nick is in that picture. That's actually what we had for breakfast one morning, and it was delicious.
I think there's a picture of the meal in a slide or two.
Yeah. Next up is actually, that was a close-up of the corn lop. I didn't really know what it was at first, and then once we tried it, it was delicious. And then
imagine
the tamale.
like liquefied cream corn. It's actually really good.
And then the next picture after this, that's what a typical Belizean meal looks like. So you have rice and beans with every meal. And I am rice and beaned out. But the food is delicious. A lot of chicken and pork. And then on the rice, they eat a lot of plantains in Belize, which are delicious, and then a lot of slaw. But anywhere you go, that's typically what's going to be on the menu, along with oxtail, cowfoot soup, and a lot of things that are probably not in your everyday diet. Yeah, lots of chicken.
Yeah. The chicken, I had chicken, pork, some beef. Their barbecue is Belizean barbecue. It's really not that different from what we got. Like it's it's like a saucy barbecue. So it's really not that big of a leap. Like when I went to the Philippines, I lost 20 pounds in 10 days because the food's way different over there. So that was actually a bit of a surprise. It's actually really good. It's really good barbecue.
So after we ate our first meal in Belize, the first place they took us was to the schools. This is actually a picture of a high school welding classroom that's outdoors that is very outdated. And I'll be real honest with you, I didn't see one welder in their welding classroom, which was alarming to me because that tells me they don't have what they need to teach. If you don't know, I'm a high school agriculture teacher. I've been teaching for 9 years. I used to teach a little bit of welding. This was really difficult for me. I'm actually going to let Nick talk you through this because I'm going to start crying.
So we get off the plane. Teresita and Jermaine pick us up. They drive us. Yeah, the little restaurant we ate at, it was right across the road from this high school. So we went to the high school. No, we went to the elementary school first, didn't we? Okay, high school was on that Friday. We got there on Thursday. It was on Friday. It's very different from what we have. No air conditioner anywhere, obviously. They have school uniforms. Most of the schools are private. Most of them are church affiliated. So we saw some Catholic churches. We went to the Nazarene Elementary and the high school. Several other denominations. Education system down there, which is close to both of our hearts. They don't really have funding. So kind of the way the thought is if a church wants to come in and say, hey, we would like to build a school here, the government says, absolutely, thank you for helping. Do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Because they just need anybody to build schools. They need it. So let's see. The high school, it needs some work. Both of the schools kind of getting into the projects that we need down there. They need pavilion areas. They have a little offset detached building that's their kitchen. Both the schools do. And the students don't have anywhere to eat.
And you can scroll through these. There's actually some pictures.
Yeah.
These are all of the school.
So they have to go out in the sun and eat. Now, we were in there, middle of October, and it was, probably 90 degrees. It was like a summer day here. In their fall, it gets way hotter in the summer. But, students have to go out and sit on a concrete pad to eat. So that's the elementary school. Have a basketball court, and so going down there, and is one of the things really good that we went down there and got to actually, talk to people and take measurements and do those things. In my head, it's like, okay, we're going to go there, we're going to build a pavilion, maybe something like what we have out back, maybe not quite that big, we'll see. What they're needing, we really can't do. They need funding for that more than anything, more than actual driving nails. They need really a metal clear span building. They have to rent places to have graduations. They start every morning with an assembly with the whole school. Like I said, Nazarene schools, so they have a message, a prayer, all that, talk about what the day's going to be. And if it rains, they don't have anywhere to do that, so they have to skip them those days. This is at the elementary school. I guess it's back here. This is the only thing they have to sit under. It's probably like a one-bay carport. And they've got, how many students? They have like 300, 350 students. So not everybody gets to, sit in the shade at lunchtime.
But I do want to say, I've been in education for 9 years, and education is really hard right now in the States. Social media has influenced that. It's influenced behavior. And the students down here were the sweetest students I've ever met in my life. And I actually showed this PowerPoint to my student. That's Justin, by the way. That's Pastor Jermaine's son. He's the tiniest, cutest little thing ever. He gives the best hugs. But experiencing education in a country that has no funding and no government, I wouldn't say government support, but not a hold that picture right there. As soon as I walked into the high school classrooms, I actually got to mingle and visit with the students.
She's gonna cry.
When I walked in, the students all stood up together and they were like, "Hello, visitor. Welcome to our country. It's so nice to meet you." And gave me the best hugs. And I needed that because education is exhausting. I love my job. I know that's where I'm supposed to be. But
Still hard.
it was still difficult because these students are sitting in a very hot classroom with no air conditioning, outdated materials, rundown classrooms. But they were there to learn. They were there to do all the good things, and they were so happy to be there. And I haven't been able to see that in a long time. I love my students that I have right now. I love them more than anything. You know, they all come from different backgrounds that are supportive and non-supportive at home. But if you work in education right now, you know what I'm talking about when I say how difficult it is because, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of things that have influenced the education here in public school. You know, we're not supposed to talk about God. We're not supposed to do a lot of things that schools in Belize get to do, and they're probably 10 years behind on technology.
In the disrespect of students and the young culture today, that's not how it is down there. They're at school because they want to be.
School is their escape from reality. School is where their friends are. School is where the adults in their life that love them the most outside of their mom or dad or whoever raised them love them. But the school, there are some things that we could do for the school, absolutely, but they need funding more than anything. So,
trying to think of the two schools. So the high school, one thing, you know, both of us, you know, I teach college agriculture. I used to teach high school shop class and things like that. You know, we're trying to work with some of our contacts and sales reps and see if we can get some welders donated, because how can you have a welding program if you don't have welders? The high school, so they don't have windows. They have like aluminum louvers on all the windows, and they need, basically all of them they have are broke. You know, they don't close right or they don't open right. And they have a lot of hurricanes, and even aside from hurricanes being on the coast, you know, there's a lot of these pop-up storms. So they have, you know, they've had computers get ruined, which computers are hard to come by. Books get ruined, stuff like that. So they need some of those. They're about $150 a piece per window. So trying to kind of think of some ideas to get some windows paid for. The outdoor, so the main school at the high school, it's concrete building, 2 stories, sort of laid out like a motel with, you know, a balcony that you walk down. But the school's grown a lot since the new principal's been there for, 5 years, somewhere around there?
yeah.
And they have, you know, they've came in and built, you know, community people come in and the teachers come in on weekends and build, you know, kind of freestanding classrooms. Well, the whole city of Belize City is basically built on what used to be a marsh. So when it rains, it floods. There's nowhere for water to go. So they're built up, you know, probably 2 or 3 feet off the ground. But when a decent-sized storm comes in, the whole place is just, you know, ankled and knee-deep in water. So some of those, they've got rotting posts coming out. So we need to go there and fix those posts, lift them up, cut them off, pour some piers, fix some things like that. They have a block wall going around most of the places there. They have fences and walls because, you know, in desperate people, things tend to walk off. They've got a fence that needs some attention, need to add a couple more layers of block. I think we got a block layer who's going to be going with us, so that'll be good.
So one of the, and he did great, like, with keeping up with all the construction stuff. I did terrible with my emotions because I cried every day. But, you know, and we're just kind of like going back and forth. But
Yeah.
it's really hard for me to see students in education in Belize where 2 years ago my students and I went one-to-one iPads in our county. So we get updated technology every year. And I don't know what they do with it when they decide that, you know, it no longer serves its purpose with us. What do we do with it? Do we just throw it away and buy new because we have the money for that? But these kids in Belize have outdated textbooks, if they have textbooks. We have a 5G network here.
They've got a computer lab that are all, donated computers from the States. Way out of date, but somebody that works in IT down there can, get them up to do something with.
But we have a 5G network here in most of the United States. They operate on a 3G network. And so what I teach here with the technology that I have with my students would not work down there. And that's still hard for me to swallow sometimes because it's not fair. And you have these beautiful students who are just the happiest. Belizean people are the happiest people who have nothing that I've ever met in my life. And that was kind of a slap in the face because I'm just, in general, an emotional person. I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm mad, I cry when I'm sad, like all the things. These people in Belize whose homes need repair, who probably don't have very much money, and I could keep going down the list. They're happy, and they love Jesus, and they're not afraid to tell you.
When was it? We were. So, like I said, we're kind of skipping around. We're sort of winging this. So, if you got any questions, we're both teachers. Just raise your hand. We'll, whatever. Fun story. So we go down there Friday night. We got asked to go to like a youth night they had at the church, and we were really excited. And one of the ladies, what was her name? I can't remember her name. She comes up and she says, "Pastor Becky, Pastor Nick, we're so glad you're here." And I'm like, "Pastor, that's not okay. Thank you. We're glad to be here." Okay, it's a little much, but all right. And, we're carrying on, and, later on she says, "Pastor Nick," not a pastor, by the way. That's the whole joke there. She's like, "We're so happy to hear your sermon on Sunday." And I said, "Uh-huh." You're going to hear me what?
Yeah, we got volunteered to preach that Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And
never taught a sermon in my life.
It was awesome.
I don't know if that's a word I use, but it was something. Yeah, hey, I pulled out the handkerchief like an old, but, and I tried to brag on Miss Becky a little bit and talked, about some of the work, she's doing in the schools. And this kind of hit me, telling you about the schools and stuff we've seen. One of the pastors did a, closing prayer, and he said, we need to pray for the students in America because they don't have the freedoms we have here. And it was like, because they can talk about Jesus anywhere, at school, all those things. And, it kind of blew them away talking about, hey, she can lose her job if she said, "Hey, everybody, let's pray." Like, you can get fired on the spot. But that I didn't see that part coming. They're like, "We need to pray for America." I was like, "God."
Yeah, we heard, we actually heard more than once.
There's some of those windows, by the way, that need some attention.
Yeah. But we heard more than once, and that's some artwork from students. They did this activity where they were able to promote how to get healthy. And so me being a teacher, I like to take pictures of stuff like that, and they did such an incredible job. But we heard more than once while we were in Belize, like, "Oh, everybody around the world says that United States is the freest country on earth, but it's not. Your food is poison. You can't talk about Jesus in public schools, and even there's all these rules in private school that you have to abide by. So, no, America is not the freest country in the world. Belize is." And I'm like,
there's some truth to that.
There's some truth. If you'll go back a couple of slides to the church on the inside, it was the green, and just hit till you find it. It was after the food, I think. There you go.
Back one.
So that's the inside of the church that we'll be working with. There are some things that need to be done, and the view and the angle that I got, the church is in better condition on the inside than honestly I expected. The outside of the church, they've actually had an issue with people wanting to steal things, and so they have lots of...
Picture of that door.
Yeah, there's lots of barriers. Like, you have to go through a gate to get into the church, and then you have to undo all these locks to get inside the church.
3 locks on the church door.
But again, they don't use air conditioning, so church was hot, but they had the windows open, so there was a cool little breeze in there. But I had never experienced a worship like I did there. So what they do, how they do worship, they have a little sound system, and they're wanting to get better with that. But their worship leaders in church that morning, they actually get on YouTube and they'll sing along with whatever song they feel like is appropriate for church that morning. And so the music will go in and they'll just be singing along with the actual video off of YouTube. And one thing we did learn in Belize is that Belizean people do not go on a time schedule. So if church starts at 9 o'clock, that means 9:30.
Definitely on Belizean time.
Yeah, nothing opens on time. We were there during a holiday. For us, it's Columbus Day. For them, it's Indigenous People Day, I think is what it.
Another name for it.
I don't know, but nothing's open that
used
day.
Used to be Columbus Day for them too.
Yeah, it's their Independence Day is what it is. And so there's nothing open that day because people drive to the next closest city to visit family. There's no restaurants open, no coffee shops open.
And that was the last day we were there, so we were boarding the plane at, like 2 in the afternoon. So we said, oh, yeah, we'll go walk down the street. You know, this little restaurant down here. Well, that one's closed. Let's go to another one. Everything was closed. So we didn't eat anything until we got to the airport at like 2 that day. So you learn as you go.
Yeah, but there was a lot of cool moments at church that morning. Nick did a great job at giving his sermon. Lots of
what is this? I thought it was okay.
Lots of people showed up. There's a lot of sweet little kids there that drew us pictures for us to take home to put in our Bibles.
They could not say the name Waynick. I didn't think it was that complicated. I heard every version of it. We just settled on Waywick.
Yeah.
Close enough? That'll work.
I think the next picture, maybe, I can't remember. There were some other pictures of the church, but that's the high school. But one thing I do want to mention before I forget, in Belize, they do accept U.S. currency. And so sometimes, let's say you go out to eat, and in Belizean, your total is $30. Well, that's $15 US. And you can pay with U.S. dollars, but if you need change back, they might give you Belizean money back, which is really cool. It still has Queen Elizabeth on their dollars, and it's really cool. They're very colorful. We kept some Belizean money just as a keepsake. That right there is a gazebo at the high school, so that's one shaded area that they're able to eat, but that's not going to house all their students.
They've got 550, 600
something
students, something like that. They're wanting 2 more of those built. Have to look at some things. Maybe that's something we can work on when we get down there. Maybe not. We'll just have to, see what all works out.
There is a lot of updates that we're able to do at the church. You and Pastor Jermaine had talked about what needed to be done at the church. I wanted to do a community cleanup one day because the city is very dirty. And I don't know if it's because, when it floods, trash ends up where it ends up because there's nowhere for the water to go. And there is a smell in Belize that I wasn't used to, and a little bit of it I think is still in my nose. But there's just trash everywhere. And I don't think it's because they don't care about their city. I think it just ended up there after all the rain and different events that led up to that. But aside from the projects at the church and maybe the schools that we're able to do, I think that for those of us that, may not be in construction to perform a certain job, I think that walking around the church neighborhood and the city just cleaning up would be so helpful to the Belizean people. We had talked about having a team down there that could make food for us, and then, the people at the church, if they stick around and help us out, because they're literally some of the nicest people.
They really are.
There are a couple of hardware stores down there. One of their main hardware stores is called Benny's Hardware, and it's actually really, really nice. It's 2-story.
It's probably the nicest hardware store I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's 2-story, and they have everything from lumber to hand tools, appliances. all the things.
Everything you need. It's a small version of like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, but they've got everything you need. So at the church, there's projects there for everybody. I know myself and a few others going. We're kind of construction oriented. I grew up in construction. They're needing some stairs built to go to. They have kind of an area. If it's sort of laid out like this, they have kind of an entrance foyer in the back, and there's kind of a dead space above it. So they want to build some stairs going up to that just for storage, not for seating or anything. In the picture you've seen, they have like some boxed in beams. Some of those, because it's very humid down there, being right on the coast. Yeah, those wood beams, they're starting to come delaminated, so they need some attention. We've got Pastor Jermaine, like I said, does some construction work, so he's got some scaffolding. We can get up there and work on it. They're really looking for a projector system similar to what we have here, with a screen in the back and a screen towards the front. I've got Jason working in the music business. He's kind of running down some leads on some of that stuff. But the whole place needs paint. So, if you're not sure, if you can contribute or how you contribute, if you can hold a paintbrush or a roller, there's acres that need to be painted. Every square inch of this building, inside out, could really use a good coat of paint. Pressure washing, cleaning off the block. It is a concrete building. Concrete buildings are obviously better down there. They get hurricanes every few years that just devastate everything. So concrete buildings are really what you want, and they've got some moss and things growing. They have an old parsonage. How do I even explain this? So they have kind of an annex. Sorry, I'm not used to talking on a mic. They call it the annex. Kind of an attachment area. They have sort of fellowship hall underneath it. Need some tile work in there. That's where we did our youth night. Above that is an old parsonage. It's kind of like a little efficiency apartment. Has 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, like a kitchenette, common area. But they're building a new one. The Wichita Church of the Nazarene in Kansas, they come down there every year, and they're building that. And I'm going to reach out to them and say, is there anything we can, do to kind of have it better for y'all hit the ground when you get there? But the old parsonage, kind of their dream for that is, having a couple of churches that come down there every year to help, is to sort of turn that into kind of a bunkhouse. So put some bunks in there. They need some HVAC units in there, some not HVAC units, but some mini splits, if anybody knows what those are. And they're a lot cheaper down there than they are up here. They're $1,000 to $1,500 up here. They're like $450 for name brand down there, which is kind of blew me away. Paint, tile work, and then those are just the projects that need the sprucing up construction type projects. On top of that, we're wanting to do some outreach stuff, kind of have some street revival kind of things, go out in the community. The church is really big on, what do they call them, discipleship groups. So all over the city, at different people's houses, they have different meetings every night. So Pastor Jermaine, he lives a few miles away. He has meetups, every week or two at his house, and then they'll have them at somebody else's house, and then they have a youth night at this person's house. That's really, really something they're into. One thing they're really needing sooner rather than later, and while we sold pumpkins, was it week before last? They need a sound system, a mobile sound system. They've got one picked out, and I don't know about how this works, but it's battery operated. It's got speakers. Battery operated is very important because a lot of the places, he sets up at parks or street corners, doesn't have electricity, so it needs to be battery operated, and it's got more than one channel, so he can hook in a mic and have, one of their guys hook in a guitar. So they're really needing that for a couple of those groups. So I'm trying to get some money together for that. It's like $334 on Amazon. Problem is, for Amazon to ship it down there is another $600. Now I've got it through USPS. I went and got a quote from the post office. It'll be like $250, so it's like $600 to get this down there to them. taking that money, putting some of my money with it. They're having a pretty big event for some of their discipleship groups on November 10th. So I'm hoping I can get it bought in the next couple days and send it down there. Hopefully have it to them by then. But we'll see how the timeline works out.
So, because we're getting close to time, but I just wanted, for those of you that are thinking about going to Belize, again, I didn't know what to expect, and there's a lot of me that changed in Belize. It was a new reality that I didn't, like, you see and you hear about things on the internet, but until you see it for yourself, you don't understand what your reality looks like versus someone else's. And what's sad is their reality is less than what we have, but they're happier than we are.
They really are.
And everything that is good to them, they always follow up with, glory to God, praise be to God. And, while we get irritated because the line's too long at the grocery store, they don't have that. You cook at home, you make a meal with what you have, and you are thankful for that meal. If you're interested in going to Belize, whatever you do, stay off the government websites. But, do your research.
Obviously, we'll answer any questions.
Yeah, we'll answer any questions that we can, and so can Sean and Marcia. But if you're looking for a mission, not only with just the church, but within yourself, I highly recommend serving someone else in another country that whose lifestyle and culture is very different from yours. I felt very unsafe the first night we got there because it was new territory, and he wanted to go out and walk around because he thought, why not? We're in Belize. And I'm like, absolutely not. We're going to the hotel and we're staying there.
Yeah, she was bawling her eyes out in the hotel room, just scared absolutely to death.
And that was also the first time I'd been that far away from our children. There's not, and I don't say this to scare anybody. This is just a me thing because this is my first time out of the country. But I can't explain to you how safe I felt once we landed back on U.S. soil. It was almost like I'm home and I want to kiss the ground. But then there was a part of me that was like...
She cried after we got home, too.
I miss our friends, that we made in Belize. And it's crazy because Pastor Jermaine, we're all friends on Facebook now, but he hasn't missed a day since we left. He sends us Bible verses every day. And...
He's... we were down there 5 days. So Teresita and him picked us up. She had a women's retreat to go to over the weekend, so she was gone, and he was our man on the ground. And in that short time, he's a lifelong friend. He's a brother. That's how they talk. So official language is English. Everybody's first language is Creole. And what's kind of interesting, like I said, it's on the Yucatan Peninsula, so I thought, okay, this is going to be sort of like Mexico. It's not a Mexican country. It is more of a Caribbean country than it is mainland. The whole time you're there, you feel like you're on an island somewhere.
And we
Jermaine, he knows everybody. We were riding through the city, through some of the roughest parts, and he'd honk his horn. Hey, that's my cousin, and hey, that's my nephew, and we went to his cousin.
So we were getting ready to come home, and I finally had felt like I'm in a safe place. So Pastor Jermaine, unfortunately, has some health conditions that he had to change his lifestyle and diet for. And so he didn't feel well that day, but he didn't tell us that. And so we pull up to this house, and Pastor Jermaine gets out of the car. I'm sitting in the back seat with his wife, Rosa. And Rosa looks like, what are we doing? And I'm like, great. She doesn't even know what's going on either. This is her husband. This guy comes out of a house, and he looks scary. And he gets in the driver's seat of the car, and I was like, that's it. I knew it. I'm dying. I'm not making it to the airport. I am getting, yeah. And his name was Rockville, and he had a really cool accent. So Rockville's like, what's up? And I'm like, who are you? Where are you taking me? And that's when Pastor Jermaine was like, oh, yeah, by the way, I don't feel great. I shouldn't drive. This is my nephew. He's going to take us to the airport. And I'm like, okay. Still not convinced
Probably,
we're going to the airport.
What, 20-year-old guy?
Yeah, like, he was very sweet, though. And, like, once he started driving and started talking, I was like, okay, like, we're safe. You know, I am going to make it home to my children. But, you know, from the time I got there until the time I left, there was just a lot of uncertainties in different areas. But what kept coming back to mind for me, and I don't know about you, but, you know, sometimes in order for us to trust God, like, we have to get in some really uncomfortable situations outside of our norm, not because that's our punishment, but, you know, because he wants us, you know, to rely and trust on him and to know that, you know, the position that he has us in is for our greater. And I did a lot of praying while I was down there. I did a lot of crying and a lot of praying, and it was very life-changing for me. And I catch myself in moments, especially in my classroom. I'll look back at some of the pictures, and I'm just like, you know, like, as frustrated as I am with my job, like, I have a steady income and air conditioning in my classroom, and that's really all I need because these kids don't have that. The teachers make nothing down there. They hire a lot of or accept a lot of people who were in the Peace Corps. Is that what it's?
Peace Corps.
Peace Corps. So there was a girl from the United States down there who was going to be there for the next 3 years as their athletic trainer that coached all the teams and stuff down there. Volleyball is a huge sport.
Really into volleyball down
Yeah,
there.
it's a huge sport in Belize.
Soccer.
Football. Yeah. But if you're looking for a reason to go, like, please reach out to Nick and I. Please look back at the pictures.
Look at her Facebook. She put a bunch of really good pictures up a couple weeks ago. Some really, really cool pictures.
You know, the restaurants in the little pop-up areas in Belize, everything is fresh-pressed juice. They don't use refined sugar of any kind.
They have growing season basically year-round, which, you know, being ag teachers, we think is kind of cool.
Yeah, I
drank so much watermelon juice, and it's the most amazing, refreshing thing when it's, you know, a brisk 90-degree day in the fall.
Yeah, the fresh-pressed lime and orange juice were delicious. We went to a really nice restaurant with Teresita the second night we were down there, I believe, or the first night. I can't remember.
Night, yeah.
But what stood out to me, just because they kept saying, like, the United States is not the freest country. Your food is poison. You can't talk about Jesus. At that nice restaurant, they had a herb garden on their back area where everything was just so beautiful overlooking the ocean, and that's where they seasoned their food from.
Flowers everywhere.
I mean, they're gorgeous. The hibiscus flower. There's a lot of hibiscus tea down there. They drink a lot of coffee in Belize. But there's so many beautiful parts about Belize that you really have to understand the simplicity of the beauty that's down there, because they are not in a hurry.
Stress
in Belize
is not really a thing like we have up here.
You know, you wake up and you get to where you need to be when you get there, and you give all God the glory on the way, and you are not in a hurry at all. And I've been complaining for a while about I just need to slow down, and then we get to Belize, and I had to slow down, and I was like, what is going on?
We need to speed up.
Yeah, we need to speed up. The only thing that's fast-paced in Belize is their driving. And if you think you know how to drive in Nashville, you should drive in Belize. It's quite intimidating. But we are coming up on 8 o'clock. But Nick and I are going to stick around afterwards to answer questions and to chit-chat. But please, please, please consider coming to Belize. We plan on taking our kids. They'll be old enough to go on the trip. And, you know, I've never felt more safe for them to be there.
Just walking down the street, you know, you see some shady-looking guy coming at the sidewalk, and, you know, I'm a big barrel-chested, bearded man. I ain't too worried about it. But she was getting pretty, you know, she'd get pretty nervous about stuff. And you get closer to them, and they're, you know, good morning, have a good day, and you too, you know. So just the people are beautiful down there.
They're
Awesome
so beautiful.
people.
And the last thing I'll leave us with, one of the cool things that I learned, Here in the States, when you tell someone good night, that means you're going to bed and you're waking up the next morning. In Belize, if you say good night, that means you're saying hello to someone at night while you're walking down the street. So everybody was like, good night. And
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
walk into a restaurant for dinner and they're like, good night, how many's in your party? It's like,
yeah, it was really
seems
sweet.
different.
You know, things are just so different. So we'll stick around afterwards to answer questions. Please consider going to Belize. Please consider working with Selena on any type of fundraiser that we have. The yard sale was really successful. It was just a lot of hard work. We need more people to help with the next one that we do in the spring. If you have items that you want to get rid of, try to store them somewhere until the spring so that we can have that as a part of our church yard sale as well. And then Selena has done a great job at coming up with fundraisers for us to raise money in the church board. So please just consider staying in touch and ask questions. And please don't forget about Belize. It's the most life-changing experience you will ever have in your life. So with that, I'm going to let Nick lead us out in prayer.
All right, bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you so much for letting us come together and, share our story and have this time and share the work that you're doing, to these beautiful people down in Belize. Please be with us as we go throughout our week. Help us to, to keep our minds, on you, on the work you want us to do, and help us to be the Christians you want us to be. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.